over 19. Hey, back, hit a quarter million. When it's here, pretty chilly. I've been trying to find me really well. Silly, yo, I be gone like Cheerio. Really though, swear we finna get the gold. You the goat, but the most been getting old. Standing still, yeah, I'm getting way too cold. Like it's uno dos, I go single on these hoes. Dozen songs, dozen shows, guess that's just one way to grow.
Hello, everybody. How we doing? My D-Gents, thank you for joining me day before 4th of July. I know everyone's got a crazy week. People are moving, people are shaking, they're grilling, doing whatever. But we got a good one today. And you know, I don't think this man that I'm next to right now needs an introduction. I have been trying to get on a podcast with him for quite a while. I've had some stuff going on. He's had some stuff going on. He's got a baby. He got a new job. He's got another new job. He just joined the 32BeatWriters. My man, Zareh. What's up, brother? How you doing?
Good, man. You know everything about my life. You know, yeah, he just filled you in. So yeah, it's been a busy time. I'm happy to be here, finally getting this thing going, you know, before the season starts so we can kind of catch up on players. I actually just got the notice on my phone that this was going live on YouTube. So I got you guys on. I got the bell going for you guys. That's pretty cool to
I
see.
appreciate that, man. Yeah. It's never, it's kind of fun doing a midday show live because, you know, it obviously it doesn't hit immediately. People are at work, people are doing stuff. But ultimately, I think that if you're at a job or you're maybe the day off, dude, it is so nice to have a podcast on. Like if you're like able to do that while you're doing something else and hearing it live and going through the motions. I'll listen to live podcasts like the Podfather, for instance. He does live shows throughout the day. And it's so nice because I work from home. So I'll have that going and then I'll be doing other stuff. And I'm just like, you know, interacting and it is good. And if you're in the chat right now, if you're listening live, pop in. Talk to us a little bit. So I didn't allude to it before, but we were talking about outliers. We're talking about guys that have a uphill battle to climb as far as prospects go, like players that come into the league that might not be drafted high, that might not have the sexiest profiles, that aren't really being looked at as guys that are can't miss prospects. But ultimately, you know, we have them higher than normal. I guess for example, we're going to be talking about a couple guys that we've been in on for quite a while. They were guys that we touted as prospects and you know, we have to hold true to some of these guys. I think your process should change. I think you would agree on this. Like you have to change your process based on landing spots, based on DC. Some things have to move around a little bit, but ultimately these guys have these rock solid profiles that we see shining through in the NFL regardless of that. Is that how your process would go normally? Like you had these guys, but you also think, hey man, there's outliers out there. There's players that hit regardless of circumstances.
Yeah. And I think that's, you know, following the draft capital, I think is first and foremost in, you know, in your rookie process. But I think understanding players and understanding nuances of players and how they fit in certain systems, like we'll discuss those nuances coming up here shortly on this show and why, you know, we're not just throwing out like hot takes out there just for the sake of creating content. Like this is substantial stuff that has substance and that can hold up. You know, given that, you know, it's you need things to go right for certain players and situation matters. And I think, you know, the players that we're going to talk about, situation definitely seems favorable for them for many reasons. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And before we get into that, I did talk a little bit about how you were back. Well, you're not back. You're with 32BeatWriters. How's that going, man? Tell me about your fantasy career and what's going on right now. Tell everybody that's not in tune with what's going on with you, what you've been up to.
Yeah. I'm 32BeatWriters, man. It's really crazy. It's I respect the hell out of that company, the organization, and it's still a shock to me every single day I wake up and I'm their lead analyst. And they reached out to me a while ago and I couldn't do it because I was busy. I had some life changes happen. Time opened up and I decided I reached back out and luckily they were still looking for somebody and they like my work and I'm just humbled to be there. And I'm really, I want to do the best I can. You know, I feel like I've been doing fantasy football content for a long time and I've gone through, you know, the hot take phase and all that kind of stuff and the clicky phase. And I feel like I've reached a point of maturation where I can kind of deliver deliver fantasy football content in a mature way, speak from the analytics perspective, which I've gotten heavily into, and speak about the film angle where I came from originally. And I feel like I'm balanced in that way. And and if I don't know something, I'm not gonna just force the issue. I will tell people I don't know. I will come back to you with that after I research it, because there's many things. I mean, as far as like content goes, we're planning on doing one podcast a week. If, pending availability for everybody. We're all, everybody's very busy in their personal lives, but yeah, one podcast a week, articles, and then I will be updating. If you go to the 32 Beat Writers page, they have nuggets for every single player as far as camp report goes, and I will be adding fantasy takes to the nuggets I see relevant, worth having.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys are killing it over there. So you and I share a StreamYard. So we are on the same StreamYard, and 32 Beat Writers stuff is all up on my upload page. So every time I am uploading a pod, I'm listening to one of your pods. So while I was in there, I was listening to your Sleepers podcast that you just recorded this week. So I enjoyed that quite a bit. Yeah, it's nice, man. You're my neighbor now, so it's cool that we're creating content, and I have your content readily available to me before you even drop it. So I mean, yeah. I can just watch you, the unadulterated, unedited version of you on a podcast behind the scenes. So that's pretty cool.
So you got the spoilers of which guys I'm talking about then, if you already listened to the episode, right?
I already listened to it. Yeah. I mean, I'm ahead of the game. I like to do some research on everybody I have on. I like to hear your content. I mean, you and I have been talking for a long time, man. We've been in the space talking to each other. I know what you do. I respect what you do. I don't ever invite people that I don't respect on here, to be honest with you. Like, if I have you on the show, it means that I like your takes. I think that you bring something to the table. I appreciate what you do in the space. You're just a good dude, man. And I'm glad to have you finally on the DGen. So we got some people talking about your stash in here. Jamie's jumping on. Jamie's talking about how nice your mustache is. Jamie's a ride or die in Player Profiler.
Jamie, I'm a firefighter. I'm a police officer. I'm a contract porn star, whatever you need, man.
Yeah, man. I mean, it depends on what's going on. He's elusive. He can be whatever you want him to be. Let's get into it, man. Let's talk outlier guys. Let's talk about guys that, for whatever reason, we're in on them, and we'll jump into the reasons and go into all that good stuff. This first one that I have on the list is someone that I've been in on for quite a long time. I had him as a second round talent, just the way that he plays the game, the way that he operates as a whole. I think that, he is super undervalued when it comes to rookie drafts, when it comes to startups, when it just comes to, overall value. And we'll go into this team quite a bit. I think that you and I are pretty into the fantasy outlook of this team. So we're talking about the Titans. So Tennessee Titans have a wide receiver room that can go either way, it can blow up or they can go dinosaur mode, and they can kind of go with the old guys for the first year. Who knows how it's going to play out, but they have some talent. They have some good guys in there. The first guy I want to talk about is Elic Ayomanor. So wide receiver out of Stanford. He was selected in the 4th round. Like I said, I had Elic pretty high up. I didn't really see him slip into the 4th round personally, but he's somebody that, he's got some speed. He's a legit route runner. I'd say he's polished. He's, super nuanced. Like, he knows how to do defensive manipulation. He has good footwork. There's all these things that I love about his game, and he's a big guy. Like, he's good at contested catches. Everyone wants to point out, the big game against Travis Hunter, but there's so many aspects of his game that you can kind of go through when you watch his tape, and you can just really understand how he would fit in the NFL. Have you got a chance to really look into Elic at all and his tape? And I know you're a big tape grinder. Have you looked at what he does as a college prospect?
I mean, I just profile him as just a big athletic playmaker. I mean, if you want to just sum it down to like some simple bullet points, he's a big athletic playmaker. He has, I think he comes in clutch when he needs to. Obviously, still needs to round out his receiver. Obviously, there are some nuances he needs to work on. I mean, but like if you look at like 2024, he played 35% of his of the routes that he ran were versus press man coverage, which he was fairly successful. I think I got his yards per route run here. Give me 1 second. Let's see. Where are you, buddy? Where are you? Anyways, I can't get it right now. Anyways, yeah.
That's all right.
Yeah. So he ran a lot versus press man coverage. It was Stanford, a little bit of weaker competition, but I think the draft capital kind of makes up for that. 4th round draft capital. I think the guys that they added in Tennessee through the draft, I think were all upside project guys, but nonetheless guys that can get on the field and do work if they need them to. The depth chart is like a thin veneer that really doesn't.
That's exactly how it kind of.
Yeah. It speaks more honestly. Like if you look at the people that are the players that are ahead of Elic Ayomanor and Dike, these guys, it actually speaks like it tells me that Tennessee is actually confident in the guys they drafted because they're like, all right, these guys are kind of just here for a little bit. These veterans, they're just kind of here for a little bit to get the offense going, get Cam Ward comfortable with game speed in the NFL. And then when the time comes, like if you really want to win games and, put points on the board, I think these guys are the playmakers to do it. So yeah, I mean, as far as Ayomanor, I mean, there's like what, who's in front of Van? I mean, I think on ourlads.com, Van Jefferson's ahead of him. Yeah.
I think Treylon Burks, I think that we're going to go into another guy on this depth chart in a little bit down the line a little bit here. So not to allude to that too much, but I think that we're talking about Calvin Ridley, Tyler Lockett, Treylon Burks. And I think that if Treylon Burks is injured or is not producing at the level that they really are hoping that he can kind of round out to, which I don't know if that's even going to happen. The hit rate, that's another outlier that, is fading fast as far as him producing in the NFL. At this point, I don't have a lot of faith in Burks holding on to a starting role on that team. So I think if he slips, right, I think Elic could be the primary beneficiary of Treylon Burks not producing or maybe being injured. I think that, we can talk about him working within the slot, working on the outside a little bit, but he does have that skill set where he's super athletic and he can play at 3 levels. And it's, I think that if we're looking for a dynamic playmaker, there's 2 guys on this depth chart that I'm going to, and we know what Tyler Lockett is. I think that he could be a consistent player. Calvin Ridley obviously is Calvin Ridley. I think that he's going to be the alpha of the offense, short term at least. And then we're talking about a wide open wide receiver 3, and possibly, if Tyler Lockett for whatever reason is losing, I mean, we saw him take a step back, right? And then we're probably going to see him in a more reserved role on this offense. I think he was almost retiring this year for various reasons, but I know that he's now he's selling houses. So I think he got his realtor license and he is setting up life for after football, and that's reasonable. He's an intelligent human and he's setting up a life knowing that football isn't forever. But to already do that shows me that he's probably not in this for the long game, at this point.
Yeah, he's on a 1-year deal in Tennessee right now. I mean, I think he understands where he's at as a player right now, and maybe he just wants to do 1 more year, see if he can miraculously carve out more money in the future if he comes up, in his route running efficiency. But I mean, yeah, we saw a huge decline in yards per route run for Tyler Lockett. So should we just move on to the next player? I mean, as far as like Chim Dike,
let's go right to him, because I mean. Yeah, Dike, another guy that I think probably shouldn't have gone in the 4th round, but I think that, you're going to go into him. I know that you handpicked this guy, but like his transferring, coming in, we didn't really see, he had 1 year in Florida, right? So, I mean, when you look at this guy in general, he's Wisconsin to Florida. He kind of followed Graham Mertz, right? Like he played with this guy and he said, I'm going to follow my college quarterback. over to Florida, and it benefited him. He had a great year last year. I don't have the exact numbers up front of me, but he's a versatile guy. Like, he's got good long speed. Tell me what you like about Dike. Why do you think that he's going to slide into this rotation and possibly, I mean, could we see Calvin Ridley, Ayomanor, and Dike as the three guys towards mid end of the season? Do you think this is the core that we're going to be looking at?
I believe so, and that's kind of also backed up by like what several beat reporters have said coming out of Tennessee Titans camp. They're saying this is going to be the starting lineup sooner rather than later. Van Jefferson's going to be a non-factor. Tyler Lockett's going to be supplanted by Dike. Like, they're saying end of September, but I think they're more or less saying sooner than later with Dike.
Sure.
And Dike at Florida, I was actually surprised. Yeah, like you said, how early you went. I was expecting his teammate Elijah Badger to go early, and instead Elijah Badger was a UDFA to the Chiefs, which was very upsetting. I'm never going to get over that. That caused me a lot of spiritual pain.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But yeah, I actually, when I was watching Badger, Dike just seemed like a very fluid receiver. He's not like a low A dot, slot receiver. He's not like a Josh Downs type. Like, this guy can get downfield. Like, for instance, 47.7% of his 2024 targets were in the intermediate levels of the field, so like 0 to 19 yards. 53.6% of his targets were in the deep center, which is 20 plus yards downfield, and he had a 64% catch rate on those 20 plus yard targets. I mean, so this guy gets deep. They could use him on drag routes if they want. They could use him to sit in the middle of the zones. They can use him on end arounds and motion, but he's versatile, right? He's not just a slot wide receiver. I classify archetypes of receivers in my profiles, and I have him listed as a hybrid because he plays flanker and slot. So he is, and he's not like a small guy. He's 6'1", 197. So he's kind of in that Tyler Lockett mold. Lockett's a little bit shorter, but he moves in the same kind of way Lockett does too. Like, you can kind of see some resemblance, some similarities in their game. So that's why I'm and listen, and I know a lot of people are firing back with Restrepo. Restrepo played with Cam Ward. Fine. I like Restrepo too, but I don't run the team. They didn't draft Restrepo in the 4th round. And if I'm going to bet on, if I'm betting on somebody and draft capital probability of success, yeah, I mean, let's bet on Dike. Dike has good film. Dike can get it done. Restrepo, I mean, how many UDFA wide receivers have worked out in the NFL? I mean, I can't think of 5 off the top of my head right now, but I mean, yeah, he's got the connection with Cam Ward. Fine. If that works out, it works out. And I'm not a Restrepo hater, but I mean, let's just look at let's look at Dike as the starter in Tennessee as a slot wide receiver, right? If you look at Cam Ward's targets to the slot over his past 3 years, in 2024, the slot, which was Restrepo, he was first in target share. In 2023, first in target share. 2022, second in target share. So, I mean, he favors the slot, and Dike can earn a heavy amount of targets. He could probably round out his second, maybe, I don't know, probably third his first year. But I could see him working his way up to a significant target share once Calvin Ridley's gone. And those are some of the reasons why I'm high on Dike, man. I mean, he's just all around talented wide receiver who I can see making it work out.
Yeah, and yeah, I see a lot of comments about Restrepo right here. They are pumping that he's Cam's boy and this and that.
Yeah.
I get it. Like, there's several instances where we saw, I guess most recently, like, Stroud wanted Tank Dell and they're friends, and he wanted him, and it worked out fairly well for a short period of time there. But that was more so, the NFL understanding that talent's there. Restrepo went undrafted. And you have to understand that we're talking about outliers right now because the hit rate of 4th round wide receivers is very small. The hit rate of undrafted guys is minuscule. It is a blip on the radar when it comes to fantasy value, NFL value. It's very, very rare. It's tough. There's not a lot of shows that are going to highlight undrafted guys and say that there's that great possibility of hitting. With Dike, I think that it's a set and forget it that he's going to have a role on this team. I don't know what it's going to be. I'm not sure how it's going to look, but you're right. I mean, Lockett's on a 1-year deal, and then we're talking about Burks probably not being an NFL caliber wide receiver unless, there's a massive jump and his health stays intact. And there's just too much backstory. There's too much stuff that's backing the fact that he just can't do that currently, and he's not able to do that. And I've lost. I mean, we can talk about this very, very fast, but Treylon Burks, do you see any idea, any hope of Treylon Burks being a legitimate wide receiver in the NFL?
I don't know. I can't tell you. I mean, his career has been so turbulent. I don't know where the development has had time. I don't know where there's been time for development for his game. It's just been so, I feel like it's just been more off than on. He had a few flashes in his rookie season. We know the athleticism's there. But I mean, it's just, when people start their careers out like this, it's really hard to recover. And it's tied to development. He really hasn't had time to develop. He's been in the league for 3 years. He already came in raw. He was drafted way too high. And there's no, you can't really make an argument that tells me that he shouldn't have, he should have been drafted in you can't convince me that he shouldn't have been drafted in the 4th round like Dike and Ayomanor were. That's, I think Burks should have been like a day 3 guy, as opposed to a 1st round guy, and so I mean, there could be. I don't know what the possibility is for that. Maybe 25%, maybe 50% best case scenario. But Dike is a highly athletic receiver too. He's more athletic than Restrepo. I haven't checked the measurables, but he could be more athletic than Burks.
Yeah, I think he is more athletic than Burks. Burks is a guy that was essentially manufactured for the most part in his college career. And, people saw that as, okay, then, he can transfer into a situation, but we saw how that all played out. I think it's bad team management. And then also the fact that Burks has not been able to stay healthy. Happy Hudson saying that it's the narrative of Troy Franklin. I just want to remind people that Troy Franklin was a 4th round wide receiver. Troy Franklin went where we're talking about, we're talking about Dike and like Restrepo went nowhere. He didn't go in the 4th round. So it's really not a comparison when we're talking about, college teammates linking up. I think if Restrepo did go in the 4th round, we could have that conversation. We could talk about how they valued him. But I think that this was a charity case more than anything else, where Cam Ward just said, I want my college guy on a team, because he was sitting there on the couch and he felt bad. And, he did help him train, and he was there for the combine, and he was catching passes for him and stuff. And there's obviously some camaraderie there. So, I mean, I'm not going to put a lot of weight into the fact that they played, because if you and I played in college, I would want you to be on a team if I saw you at home. I think I would say, exactly. I got to get my man on a team, like getting a little paycheck. If I have that kind of pull, I'm doing it, It
doesn't cost nothing to make Cam Ward a little happy on his first day at school, right?
That's what I mean. What are they going? They're going to drop a couple $1,000 to have him on the practice squad, and if he works out, he works out. But it's not going to hurt them at all. So
yeah. And real quick, I'll talk and go back to Ayo. Sorry, man. Like, can I go back to Ayo for 2 seconds? So, like, I was citing his route run. So he had 35% of his routes run versus press coverage last year. He had a 2.05%, 2.05 yards per route run versus man coverage, which is pretty good. I mean, if you look at like guys like like Jaden Higgins, he had like a 2.5 yards per route run versus pressed, and he had about the same percentage of routes run versus press. So I mean, like, it's pretty good. It's in that good ballpark. And Jaden Higgins is awesome route runner versus man press. So Ayomanor looking good.
Yeah. I think that we are talking about 2 young guys. So we just went over, the backups per se right now in the depth chart for the Tennessee Titans, and man, it's exciting. It's an exciting fantasy spot. If Cam Ward hits and he is a successful quarterback, we are looking at a goldmine when it comes to fantasy. It's like when you're looking at a new quarterback coming into a situation that was a little sloppy, a little messy. I always like to point at Stroud and the fact that, nobody saw that team being successful. Nobody saw Tank Dell being a super successful guy in the NFL. Like, you could have liked his profile, liked everything about him, but nobody was like claiming him to be a top wide receiver in the NFL. And then Nico Collins hadn't quite broken out yet. So Nico Collins wasn't even viewed, and they just saw it as like a dead spot. A lot of people had said that, the landing spot for CJ Stroud was tough, and they're going to have a lot of struggles offensively, and look at how that turned out. We have a couple more guys. Right now, though, we're going to kick it over to Player Profiler. So obviously we are a Player Profiler Network podcast, and we are attached to them. If you want to go over to Player Profiler and check all their rankings, check everything out that they have, Dominator rankings, all that good stuff. There's a bunch of different outlier things that you can look into when you go into the premium package. And if you go into the premium package and use our promo code DGEN, that's DEGEN, you can get up to a $25 reduction on the price there. So we're going to go over to the Podfather, listen to him, and then we're going to come right back.
People say, oh, there's so much free on Player Profiler. What's in the premium package? Well, it starts with the player rankings. We have the best process for ranking and projecting players, not just seasonal leagues, though. We're talking about tight end premium, specifically FFPC, best ball, specifically underdog, including their superflex rankings. And then we have IDP rankings, dynasty rankings, rookie rankings, Scott Fishbowl rankings, offensive line rankings by Dan Fornick, cornerback rankings throughout the season where you can see who's matched up with who. It's incredible. And think about who's contributed to our processes over time. Math majors, analytics powerhouses, plus you get the contributions from the real football guys, Billy Muzio, Dan Williamson, Bradley Stalder. That's why our rankings are the best. And if you want to upgrade and go all in, use promo code Underworld or your host promo code, and you get $25 off.
Yes, sir. So that promo code is DGEN, DEGEN, and that will work with Fast Draft as well. So if you go into Fast Draft and you want to try their new Rabbit, which is their new best ball tournament with no rake, you enter our promo code DGEN, DEGEN, and you get up to a $50 deposit match on there as well. Well, let's get back to it, man. And this is the guy that I'm most interested in talking to you about, because when I talked about having pods set up with you before and things not working out, the guy that we wanted to talk about was Mr. Phil Mafah. So Phil Mafah, running back, senior out of Clemson, selected in the 7th round with the Cowboys. And I think that the Cowboys running back situation is wide open. Like we can talk about if you like Javonte Williams. If you like Javonte Williams, you like Phil Mafah. I mean, when it comes down to it, we're talking about maybe a little less explosive, but man, they are bruisers. They are guys that run through the holes. They are just big backs that, old school backs. Like I'm talking like 1980s bruiser backs. Like I could see Phil Mafah playing in the 40s with a paper helmet. I'm not even like, when I look at his skill set when he plays, I just think he could fit any time period of the NFL. And he's probably gonna either get CTE or give a lot of people CTE in the NFL if he makes it and he has a good role, because he's a beast, man. And I just want to pick your brain. Tell me why you're so high on Phil Mafah and why you think that he can carve out a role in the NFL.
So Phil Mafah he's the largest running back in this class. I think he's like 6'1", 235 in that ballpark. The thing that he does really well is run in gap schemes. He likes counter, power, buck sweep, all the classics, all the staples of gap. He's very mature. He's very patient. He understands how to stay close to his blocker's back pocket. He also has like deceptive long speed. He's got good one cut ability. He's a big back, but he has light feet. He has underappreciated receiving capabilities. And look, and we always talk about running backs that are able to be receivers. We're not asking receivers to run deep posts or anything like that. We're asking running backs to run swing routes, angle routes, screens, right? He can do all that. If they need him to do that, he'll do it. I don't think he'll do that. They got Jaden Blue, Javonte Williams, whatever. But as far as a gap runner, he's awesome as a gap runner, dude. He's awesome. And let me tell you this. Let's talk about what Dallas is probably going to do as far as a running scheme in 2024, right? So Dallas last year ran 238 zone plays and only 105 gap plays, right? That's 31% gap plays, right? So this year they have Clayton Adams as their OC, who came from Arizona, and he was their offensive line coach in Arizona, right? Now he's Dallas's OC under Brian Schottenheimer. Last year, Arizona ran gap at the highest rate among every team in the NFL, right? They ran at 69%. They ran gap 69%. There were 10 teams last year that ran gap more than they did zone. And the next highest team was Tennessee at 58%, and New England, which was tied with Tennessee at 58%, right? So Arizona outrated them by more than 10%, right? And I think they're going to keep that same philosophy. And if they do keep that same philosophy, JonhTay Williams is going to he's going to thrive in that system, right? And people always say, okay, let's talk about draft capital. All right, so him not testing because of his shoulder injury he got at Clemson last year, and playing through that shoulder injury throughout the year, him not testing, I think, dropped his draft capital. Also, the Cowboys had other prior pressing needs on their team. Running back is not really a concern for most teams. You can afford to go 6th, 7th round in a draft, especially with a deep running back class, like this year's running back class was. So, if you look at players whose draft capital rises because they get good RAS scores and good athletic testing, him not testing, him not running, he did an individual day, but he didn't do any like big, 40-yard times, anything that we can get his measurables on. But if you watch the film, like if you go to my YouTube page, like I had some spare time in this offseason and I did a whole video on Film Mafah. Just type in my name and go to my page and you can see like a 6-7 minute video of like long speed breakaway cutups. I break it down. I break down all his traits. Check it out. But yeah, so I think I'm predicting a huge change in running scheme for the Cowboys. They're going to do like a polar flip, right? They're going to go from very heavy zone to very heavy gap scheme this year. And JonhTay Williams, man, he was one of the least efficient running backs last year. He squandered a great opportunity he had in Denver. Miles Sanders, what are we talking about, dude? Miles Sanders, like, what, really hyping up Miles Sanders? Okay, go ahead. I'm not about that life. Jaden Blue is Jaden Blue. He's a receiving back. I mean, you can use him. He's like a James White type to me. That's what I feel like. If you think about like James White, got some scraps in the run game, but was primarily used as a receiver. But yeah, I think JonhTay Williams has a really good opportunity to shine in this backfield and take this job. I will be attending Dallas Cowboys training camp. They are 10 minutes down the street from me. They come out to Oxnard, California, and they do their training camp out here. So I will be attending and watching that backfield, and I will be posting about that backfield as the offseason progresses.
Hell yeah, man. I love that.
Yeah.
So how I see it is, Miles Sanders is going to fall off the face of the earth. I think that we are looking at a backfield that is going to look like JonhTay Williams, Jaden Blue, and Phil Mafah. And I think that that's probably what you're going to see. And I think that if Jaden Blue shows that he can be an extremely good pass catching back, I wouldn't be shocked if there was a Jaden Blue, Phil Mafah backfield.
That's probably going to be it. That's probably going to be
in the next couple of years. And not to say that Phil Mafah is going to have an incredible opportunity this year, but I think Phil Mafah is going to be on the field and he's going to see the field a little bit. And we're going to see him with his great blocking ability when, talking about patience, the way that he plays. I think that he does everything very well. And I think the coaching staff won't be able to not put him on the field because of that. I think that he's going to have a good time, getting to know the quarterback. The quarterback's going to want him on the field because he can protect well. He can block well. I think that there's so many good qualities that would have him on the field in general that he does much better than Miles Sanders. And I think that's the guy that's probably in the way of his playing time early on, because if Miles Sanders goes to the wayside, I think that Phil Mafah is in there. In some capacity, he's going to be playing, whether it's to spell JonhTay Williams as a bruiser, and then you're talking about Jaden Blue being the pass catching back, third down and passing role and stuff like that. I think that that's probably the best scenario that we can look at. And I mean, if there's ever a guy behind Miles Sanders, I don't have a lot of fear that it's not going to come to fruition and happen. I think that. Yeah, I mean, I got Tommy Harvey in here. Tommy is the host of the Devi Show. I agree that the Cowboys situation is definitely a mess. It's tough as far as, you know, backfield goes. We viewed them as being a top team of taking somebody, right? We said, okay, like if we're looking at prime landing spots, the Cowboys is one of them. I think a lot of people had them going for like Amari and Hampton or Caleb Johnson or somebody in the second round. But obviously we didn't see that happen, and we saw them pluck guys. You know, Javonte Williams is. What are the contract breakdowns? Do we have those right now? I want to like really. I'm going to look at the Cowboys running back contracts because
I'll speak on. Yeah, while you look that up, I'll just talk about like what the front office has already said about Phil Mafah and taking into consideration where their offensive coordinator came from. They're already comping James Conner. They comped him to James Conner as soon as the draft was over. I mean, as far as like size and athleticism, James Conner 6'1", 233. Phil Mafah I believe he's 6'2", 235. Let me look at the exact 6'1", 234. That's what Phil Mafah is. If you look at athleticism, James Conner ran a 4.63 40, and I'm plugging player profile right now to get these off player profile. James Conner ran a 6'1", 6'3", 40. Phil Mafah, they have Phil Mafah actually as a 4.61 40. I think he's honestly, I don't know what they got in measurement. And Phil Mafah having a higher percentile burst score too, which definitely shows up on film relative to size. That's substantial. I mean, if he's already getting the comps, he's the same exact guy that they had in, you know, the same exact profile that they had in Arizona. I could absolutely see it working out with Phil Mafah. Javonte Williams, I think, if this backfield plays out the way I think it could, I think Javonte Williams will work into more of a reserved passing. I mean, if anything, he'll be a pass pro guy. He was awesome in pass pro. He kept Bo Nix upright all year. That's where I'll give him his due last year, that he was really awesome in pass pro, and that's where his value was really at. But outside of that, he hasn't done anything as a runner. He hasn't done anything as a runner since entering the league. Obviously, he got injured, but I mean, we're a few years out from that. Still hasn't done anything. Just I don't see him keeping anybody at bay in this backfield. I mean, including Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders might, push Javonte Williams for the job for early down carry.
I mean, at this point, right? So we're looking at Miles Sanders and Javonte Williams. They're both on 1-year contracts, and they're not making starting running back money by any means. Like $3 million, $1 million, stuff like that. So it's like if one of these guys falls out of rotation, they're not going to like feel any certain way. There's no allegiance to any guy in this backfield. I think outside of Jaden Blue, who I think will probably get the most allegiance to, just because he's got the highest DC in this backfield, and they probably handpicked this guy for a reason. I think that everyone else is a question mark. Javonte Williams struggles, they're not going to care because they have no money attached to this guy. It's not like he's not making $20 million a year at this point. He's a throwaway. He's on a show me year contract right now, and if he doesn't show them, I think fairly quickly, we could see Phil Mafah and Jaden Blue highlighting this backfield this year. We could see them, totally taking out Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders. Do I think that's probably going to happen? No, but there's more of a likelihood of this happening than a lot of other guys that are, 7th round. I think he was 7th round, right? Did I say? Yeah, 7th round. I mean, 7th round running backs don't have a clear path in general. But more so in the NFL in the last few years, we do see these 7th, 8th round, whatever, like undrafted running backs that are getting the run, or that are jumping the shark. When, we saw Pacheco take over, all he had in front of him was a downbeaten Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and that, I think maybe, that was all that was on the team, right? At that point in time, I think that when he got drafted, there are backfields that you can throw the DC out the window, and you can just look at the dynamic, and you can look at the overall team makeup. And I think that the Cowboys is one of those situations where, man, nobody really scares me away from grabbing Phil Mafah off the waivers or super late in rookie drafts. And
it's the same with guys like Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt and whatever 7th round running backs. This class especially, I don't really take too much stock in running back draft capital because it's the running back position, right? Yeah, obviously 7th round draft capital is worse than second or first round draft capital. But running backs have there's just more of an opportunity for running backs to work themselves into a more prominent role on offense. And if you look at what the Cowboys needed, they needed a lot of help on defense, and they prioritized that early in the draft. They took Jaden Blue as a pass catching running back, which they needed. They didn't have, right? Who's the small guy they had at Kansas? Deuce Vaughn? Was that his name?
Yeah,
that they have?
Deuce Vaughn. Yeah.
I mean, it would have been cute to watch Deuce Vaughn work out, but that's not going to work out, right? So they took Jaden Blue, and then they had Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders already on the roster. They're like, look, man, like these guys haven't been really getting it done. If we felt comfortable, they have 2 early down backs already on the roster, right? 2 veteran early down running backs on the roster, and they're like, no, we can't go into the season with these 2 guys. We got to get Phil Mafah before we come out of this draft, right? So I mean. So that also speaks to like them not being confident in Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders, right? They're like, we can't just go with these 2. We need one more guy before we go into maybe he can rise to the top and take this backfield to where it needs to be.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to look at outliers, you're going to look at guys. These are the guys that you want to look at. People that already had that prospect profile, that had success in college and success at a high level. Phil Mafah, for example, shared the backfield with Will Shipley. Who Will Shipley, I think, is undervalued as a player in the NFL too, because one injury to Saquon Barkley and Will Shipley's probably going to see a good amount of carries and workload in that offense, especially with that offensive line that he's got. That's another guy for the day. But he was on the sorry, I'm lagging a little bit. They both were super successful in 2023 together in that backfield. I think they were both over 1,000 yards, and they had great success. And you look at this guy and you're saying, okay, he was in the backfield with somebody that was drafted in the NFL and was regarded pretty highly by NFL scouts. And I think Mafah just has it, man. I think that he's got the capability of sharing the backfield with somebody and being that guy that can spell somebody and be a pretty good workhorse, given his size and ability to block and patience and everything. So let's go to your other guy. And this is deep, and it's not even like so deep where, like I think that people just sleep on him to a degree, because we're going to go into a 6th-round wide receiver, and 6th-round wide receivers have the hit rate of, I don't have it in, I'm making up this number, but I'm going to say it's 5%, like not even, like it's got to be like 5% or less, if we're talking about the hit rate of any wide receiver outside of once you get past the 3rd, it's tough out there in general.
Oh, what's the show called? This show is called Dynasty Degens, right? This is degenerate behavior for Dynasty. Yeah, this is
and
Degens.
I think the description is the underbelly of Dynasty. We are going down deep. We're talking about getting the lint hairs out of your belly button type stuff. Like we are going, yeah. So after a couple months of working, I guess, but yeah. So we're going 6th round out of here. We're talking about JonhTay Wester, so wide receiver. Had 1 year in Colorado. I think he slid over to Colorado and he had quite the year, and he went into a situation in a different scheme, different setup, different coaches, different, quarterback. I always like these guys that can slide over into a new system after being somewhere for 3 years and they just say, well, I'm going to do what I do, and they do it well, and they show that they can do it in different systems, and upend everything that they're comfortable with. Because when you see somebody do it for 4 years in the same system, you're like, nice, but how are they going to transition? And he already kind of showed that he can transition pretty well and be successful. I think I have his numbers right here. Well, he broke out in 2023. He had 108 receptions for 1,168 yards. But yeah, the transfer to Colorado, I think he had over 10 touchdowns last year. I did not deep dive into this guy at all. He wasn't part of my rookie process. He did not kind of come on my radar until probably about a month ago. But, I like the camp hype. I like that he is out there. We're seeing videos of him catching passes, and, he is somebody that is becoming at least comfortable with Lamar Jackson, right? Like we're seeing the transition over to the NFL, and we see that he could possibly be the wide receiver 3 of this team at some point. We know that Zay Flowers is there. We know Rashard Bateman's there, and then the ghost of DeAndre Hopkins there. But where do you see this guy shifting into the team? I mean, special teams first and then coming in. Let's start with what you like about Wester. Why you think that he has a chance to hit in the NFL?
Well, he's like a true slot. He's 5'10", 163. But this, okay, so I mean, I need to talk about his backstory first to give people context about why I like him in the NFL. And this guy is a developmental player, maybe year 2, year 3 probably. But so he played 3 years at Florida Atlantic University. He led that conference in receiving yards, receptions, and one other stat I can't remember. And then he transferred to Colorado, right? Tougher division, Big 12, and he finished second in receptions, finished with over 900 yards behind Travis Hunter. Shined in Big 12, right? He didn't decline. That's important. You like to see these kind of trends. You like to see these improvements as the competition gets tougher, and that kind of like makes me understand, makes me have more faith in the fact that he'll have more success in the NFL. He'll have a chance of succeeding in the NFL. Also on special teams, he at FAU or in that conference, he led that conference in return yards per kick return or punt return. So he is a punt return specialist. He is a special teams guy. He's going to have a foothold, I think, as a primary punt returner on that offense. And that is the kind of key. That is the skeleton key that gets players with late round draft capital on the field. And if you look at like what Malik Washington did, he finished with like 1,600 or 1,400 all-purpose yards at Virginia before being drafted late by the Dolphins, became their primary kick returner, and he had late draft capital, and that's how he earned his way on the field. And then he, became their primary guy, their slot guy. And I think there's JonhTay Wester can shine. He's already catching touchdown passes from Lamar Jackson in, I believe it was OTAs or mini camp, one of the camps from this early offseason portion. But he's part of an offense that is able to change its identity. They have a bunch of different personnel on that offense. Zay Flowers being the primary guy, but we've seen Rashad Bateman shine. We've seen Isaiah likely have his moments, and Mark Andrews, is starting to become. He's still a focal point in that offense, but I think Isaiah likely has a chance to kind of get level with him this year. And I think this offense will find a home for JonhTay Wester as a tertiary option, as a third option. But I mean, what does that translate to you? What does that translate to dynasty? What does that translate to your dynasty teams? I mean, it's probably a wide receiver 3, and I think a lot of people start their playing rosters that have 3 wide receivers and like multiple flex spots. So I mean, most people play in 12, 14 team league dynasty leagues, and Western is a guy you're going to put on your taxi squad, and he's going to be your wide receiver 3, maybe with wide receiver 2 upside in about 2 years. Slot guy, plays deep, can play shallow, really has a good understanding for the middle of the field. And what I think one of the coolest traits about JonhTay Wester is that he knows how to tempo in the open field. He knows how to change his tempo in the open field. And you'll see him do this a lot on film, where he'll be one-on-one with a defender. He'll just come to like a near complete stop, and then just his body language will get this guy going, the defender going in one direction, and he'll just go straight 0 to 100 in the other direction in the open field. It's like it's beautiful to watch. I really haven't seen another receiver do this. So he's got a good feel. He's got really good. He's got just good suddenness in the open field, and I think he's going to find his way onto the field sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think I everything I like on film has to do with his quickness, the way that he can come in and out of breaks fast. He knows how to separate. He understands where defenses are going to be, so he can play open zone schemes. He understands where to go. He has that anticipatory factor. Sorry, man, I can't talk anymore. I'm on vacation. So it's like I like a lot of what I see. Does his size scare you a little bit? The way that he's built, he's like 155, maybe 160. I think he's got to fill out a little bit. He's got that early Zay Flowers career situation going where he looks a lot smaller on the field. Not that I think that it's going to affect him, but I'm scared on press coverage. I'm scared on, really just like physical corners and stuff like that. If you do see him on the field, no fear when it comes to his size at all.
I mean, there's always size concerns, but I think we're in this we're in this era of the NFL where size matters less and less. I mean, I just don't. I mean, he played over the middle of the field a lot at Florida Atlantic in 2023. You know, in 2024, he did the same thing too. I mean, if he wasn't injured, it would have happened by now. It might happen in the NFL. I mean, the guys are much more bigger, but I mean, like he's still relatively small to most athletes in the college game too. What's the max size he can fill out? Probably like maybe put on like 7 extra pounds, go to 170. That'd be great. I don't think it would affect his game at all. But I don't think they're going to line him up at split end and put him on press coverage with like top cornerbacks on an island. I think they're going to find ways to get him the ball, put him in bunch formations, get him working in pre-snap motion, and have him release off the line at the snap. He's just a very versatile weapon you can get the ball to in different hands. And if they want to put him on the line, they can. But like press man, like jam, like press man, and then like jam are like two different things. You can play press, and press will bail, right? Press doesn't mean they're putting their arms up on you. Like jam cover. Like if they want to jam, they can try a jam, but he can learn some swim moves. He can learn some swipe moves, and he'll smoke a defender if they do that. I mean, it's not hard. He just has to anticipate that. They probably won't line him up on the line of scrimmage. They'll probably keep him back. He'll line up like as a receiver, but not on the line. He'll line up with a little bit of depth so he can get some release forgiveness off the line. So, not too worried about his size.
Nice, man. Yeah, I mean, you might be the primary reason why I am in on this guy, to be honest with you, because I think you're maybe one of the only guys that is pumping him. And I agree the special teams option for him is going to be pretty prevalent. Like they have Tylan Wallace, I believe, but I think that they're going to mix in Wester for sure and have him kind of work in as that possible back end wide receiver 3 return guy to open up the season. And I think that he can shine in that return role, especially with the new return rules. I think that he could probably be becoming one of the top return guys. Like I can see his skill set being there, like I don't think that he was a primary return guy in college. Like I definitely know that he's got return option going, but like he just fits that so perfectly in my mind.
Special teams is a key for a lot of guys, like especially running backs and wide receivers who get on the field. Like with tight ends, right? Like you guys got like Jared Wiley that came into the league, a little bit of late draft capital 2 years ago. We all want him. Thank you, Tommy. Jared Wiley came into the league, but he's a F move tight end, right? Like he doesn't have those blocking capabilities. So what tight ends need to do to get on the field is learn to block, unless they're probably primarily going to use him as a receiver, which is few and far between. That doesn't really happen. I mean, like there's things that players need to learn how to do, especially players with late draft capital who aren't established and and they don't invest early in them. So I'm sorry if I interrupted you.
No, not at all. No, man. Yeah. I'd rather you talk than I talk most of the time on the pod anyway. Cool. So, but yeah. I mean, I think that, that's the thing. You got to sell yourself a little bit. You got to just find reasons to get on the field no matter what. And if it's not at your primary position or the way that you want to play, show them that you have the skill set to do that. And I think that, you have to be a smart businessman in that sense. If you have an ego coming into the NFL and you say, I'm not going to return, I'm not that guy. I mean, you're already in a bad spot, especially with the coaches, especially with the way that, you want to be on the field no matter what. And then, how many guys have been return guys that get lined up as a wide receiver eventually? It does happen, right?
Yeah. It's also like Brashard Smith in KC right now, right? Like people are always talking about his work at SMU as a running back, which was outstanding, first year running back, and he went nuts. But I mean, if you really want to understand what Brashard Smith is, look at his Miami tape. That's going to give you a scope of what like Andy Reid is going to do. And it's all about like having versatile aspects to your game. You have to be multidimensional, and I think that's true for anybody at a job, right? You got to be multidimensional. You got to show that you have a lot of utilization. You can be used in different ways. And it's not just true in football, any job you have. I don't care what it is. So, I mean, like Brashard Smith, Like he started out as a slot wide receiver at Miami, and then he started to use him gradually at the end of 2023 as a running back. And then the coach at SMU said he understood he had imagination to use, and said, okay, we're going to use this guy as running back, but we're also going to use him on a lot of deep wheel routes. He can, he can get up high. He can high point the ball. Angelo, you had down to Angelo, right? And he talked about Brashard Smith. You just posted that little piece about Brashard Smith. Go watch what Angelo has to say. He's absolutely correct, man. And John Harbaugh. Which Harbaugh is the coach of the Ravens? John, right? Yeah,
John.
Whatever. The coaching staff in Baltimore, plenty of imagination with their players. They know how to use these guys. That's why they get guys like JonhTay Wester to come play, because they know they have a lot of versatility. They can use them in different ways, and that's why it's all about context. If he was on a different offense, who knows how I would have felt about JonhTay Wester? I would probably I would have never mentioned his name, but there's hope for him.
Yeah, like Tommy in the chat saying, there's nobody on that team that scares me. We're talking about Zay Flowers, and Rashad Bateman. I mean, Bateman had one healthy season, and I am hoping that continues for him. I love Rashad Bateman as a player, but if we're looking at his past, it could be up in the air. Like if Bateman slips up and he has an injury, which was really the first 3-4 years of his career, it opens up everything. Like I more times than not, we see the Ravens have a roster of just like hodgepodge, mismatch, random guys, like Tylan Wallace's and really just like players that probably wouldn't start on most NFL rosters. But for whatever reason, these guys have these elite quarterbacks and they think that they can just line up anybody and anyone. As the depth chart kind of slims down, it goes to non-existent. Like there's not an incredible imagination required to think that Wester could be the wide receiver 3 of this team in some time, especially if Bateman gets injured and if we see DeAndre Hopkins kind of turn to dust. Like I'm not sure if this revives his career or it makes him more of a inefficient guy. I'm not sure how this plays out for him. This is an interesting year for DeAndre Hopkins as like a kind of final hurrah. I think that, he's really hoping that Lamar Jackson takes him to the promised land this year, but I can't see that he's going to be a mainstay guy after this year. I think he's a one and done guy in the wide receiver room for sure.
Yeah. DeAndre Hopkins, I think. Yeah.
But
Hopkins is pretty much wrapped up. They got our lads has JonhTay Wester as the wide receiver 2 behind Zay Flowers currently right now. And that makes sense.
So yeah, Bateman, we're talking about Bateman being underneath Wester when it comes to the depth chart, or what are you looking at right now?
No. Wester is behind Flowers. Did I say Bateman? Wester is behind Flowers.
Okay, yeah. The depth chart. Okay, yeah. I mean that makes sense. The slot roll. Okay, yeah, man. I mean, is there anybody else that you want to drop, like a quick hitter right now, or you want to? It's up to you. We can keep going if you want.
No, I think I'm all set, man. I mean, I can get weird talking about some other guys, but I mean that.
Yeah, man. This is a good little spread right here. Obviously, we went through a bunch of guys right now. Tommy's into Nick Nash. I like Nick Nash a lot. I think he's an intelligent player. I think that he could definitely carve out a nice role in Atlanta.
Yeah.
On a team
has a shot. Yeah.
I mean, the team has nobody for wide receiver 3. Like I think that it's wide open and Nash definitely has the ability to slide up right behind Mooney as the wide receiver there. And he's the quarterback situation is vastly improved. We got a quarterback that can throw the ball. And I think that a wide receiver 3 on that team is kind of exciting. I think that you might be able to sustain 3 wide receivers on that team at some point. So Nash is a good stash. Nash is somebody that I want to grab everywhere.
I kind of like Jalen Lane on Washington.
Yeah.
As a yak guy. 63% of his yards on receptions came after the catch last year. There really isn't anybody to be worried about us outside of Terry McLaurin. I mean, there's Deebo Samuel, but I mean, like, I view more of as like a hybrid running back wide receiver and not a true slot option. I think Jalen Lane could be a fun dynasty stash, and he can morph into something nice. Wide receiver 3, wide receiver 2, who knows? But yeah, I mean, I think Jay and Daniels, the Washington Commanders, they threw screens at the 12th highest rate last year, and I could see Jalen Lane being used a lot on screens, in bunch formations. You know, again, as a slot-ish type of guy. Yeah, let's get weird.
Yeah,
definitely.
I can
Everybody
see
wants
that.
to get
I
weird.
think that
Nobody
he's
wants to talk about it.
Yeah, you can get super weird with it. I mean, there's not so many guys that we're gonna just throw out there, like Lambert over there with the Chargers. Possibly. I mean, there's so many guys that you can stash right now. You want to be very careful with who you're stashing. It's like, you know, I wouldn't be talking about anybody that's, you know, trending on sleeper at this point, but man, I like the spread right here. We covered a lot. You can only talk about so many outliers that you're confident in when it comes to the NFL, you know? So it's like, man, I appreciate you jumping on. I'm glad that we finally got to do a pod together, man. I hope that we can make this a routine thing. If we can work out our schedules and have you on a little bit more, because I think we flow well together and I think it's good content. So let everybody know what you have coming up with the 32BeatWriters and what kind of content that they should be looking out for and where to find it.
Yeah, so we have a podcast called Beyond the Rankings, and we'll be doing a weekly podcast, and then we'll ramp up as training camp, you know, begins, because that's like our that's our richest time of content. That's what we do at 32BeatWriters, is report on training camps primarily. And then I'll be putting out articles. I put out an article earlier this week, one fantasy takeaway from the offseason for every single NFL team. And then I'll also be updating their player nuggets with fantasy takes. And that's what I'm primarily at. If you want to find me on Twitter, I'm at ZKantzFF. Hit me up on Twitter. We can if you want to get weird and talk about other guys, we could talk about Raheem Sanders. You know, we could talk about, you know, all kinds of weird late round guys I love talking about. Let's not talk about top 12 guys, whatever you do. Just don't please hit me up with that. I'm not about that.
Man, you're always good.
There's other guys.
You're always good for that. And I appreciate you. I appreciate what you bring to the table, because you do have those like little fantasy nuggets. And you do the work, obviously. So if you're doing the work, that kind of shows in what you put out there. So, man, like I said, I appreciate you. I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate everybody listening today. I hope you guys have a good 4th of July, a good weekend. Enjoy it, man. I'm getting out of here, man. I'm going to the beach. I'm packing up my bags right now. I'm taking off. So that's why we did everything a little earlier this week. But we will catch you guys next week. I'm going to drop a thread of all the pods that we have. So look out for that, because this week we had a pod on Monday, a pod on Tuesday, a pod on Wednesday. And then obviously today we're doing this. So a lot of content to consume, a lot of stuff for this weekend. So if you missed anything, I will drop that thread and you can check that out. But I appreciate all you DJs, and we'll catch you guys next week. Peace.